And we are back. Hope you enjoyed those duct tapes. Hope you enjoyed Kuro suffering in that one as well. It's always great.
Yes, it's a very interesting time. I always enjoy the Spanish speaking intros, and so it's exciting to have the duct tape that is dedicated to them playing, just because they always provide such a great time. It's really good content.
Yes. Massive shout out to Google Translate for helping that happen. That's where, especially Yaku derives his from. Yaku's, but yeah, they're amazing. They're beautiful. Speaking of, if you want to contribute to that Spanish intro, then you can spend some of your channel points on that. And yeah, it is a bit of a community challenge, so everyone can kind of pool their points together and make it happen.
Yes, but speaking of intros, at one point we'll have to eventually introduce these two players, PiLiPiLi and Dolan, who are very, very good and going to be clashing here on Lightshade.
Oh yeah. Here we go. Now we're getting into the big boys because I feel like I say this all the time. PiLiPiLi, he's such a good player. He's he's one of the best Protosses in the North American region. Of course, you've got the top ones. You've got your Neebs, you've got your Australias, but not too far behind them is this player right here, spawning in at Lightshade LE. We have the now North American and now American Protoss player. He is blue, representing Genesis Gaming. It is PiLiPiLi.
And spawning in the top left-hand corner is the red Terran player who has been an up-and-comer for quite a while and representing himself. Give it up for Dolan.
Boy. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how this turns out. Dolan, he's a player that we have been able to follow throughout his run in Code A. He made it all the way to Code S out of his group, and now he's here facing PiLiPiLi.
Yes, both of these players, they are so good. I feel like Dolan has been a rising player for quite a while because he's been competing since at least 2016. I remember because he actually beat me at one of the dream hacks that I managed to play in. And these players are finally interacting as PiLiPiLi does have the probe scouting across the map, but nothing too aggressive just yet. And so we're gonna have to wait and see.
That we will. I'm really curious to see how Dolan plays this out as well. Oh my god, just splitting a couple of boys.
That's confusing.
It's confusing because it looked intentional. I don't like that's okay. He really wanted to get rid of that probe.
Yeah, and he does get it shoot away. Maybe he was worried about a cannon rush of some kind and decided to pull an extra SCV in case of that. However, instead, fairly normal things as Dolan gets an SCV across the map of his own and scouts that, hey, there's a Nexus going down. Doesn't get like a tech scout of like the Cyberport timing or anything, but seeing most everything with the Reaper done, I feel like Dolan's still in a good spot knowledge-wise.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, he does go out with his Reaper. Maybe he was just, making sure he was safe and secure from cannons. Again, PiLiPiLi can be a pretty cheeky player. He is a personality in and of himself. He streams as well. He streams pretty actively. And yeah, we'll see. Again, for me, PiLiPiLi, he's kind of a favorite to at least make it to the semis. But as you were saying, Dolan, he has been slowly rising up, kind of getting better in skill over time, over the past couple of years. And now is his opportunity to really kind of get his name out there. And we'll see how he does.
Yes, as we do have a reactor on the way on the barracks and a Hellion being made initially out of the factory with the starport being made. And so I feel like Dolan, he's trying to maximize what units he has right now, though delaying his marine production boot is interesting. I'm curious if he's going for a slightly fast third base or if he will eventually add on some extra racks for some pressure.
Yeah, we'll see, especially because in this matchup, typically we have the Terran player, like harassing the opponents as best they can, whether it's with Watermine drops, whether it's with Ravens. It feels like they need to kind of make sure the Protoss can't get away with just smackering up and doing their own thing, right? So it'd be interesting if he does go for an earlier third CC, as, okay, we have an additional Rax going down. Ooh, Tech Lab on that starport.
And Raven is the tech of choice now. Dolan opting to scout basically everywhere on his side of the map with the Reaper and Hellion. And so he knows for sure that it is not a proxy. And with this Raven being made and another tech lab on the factory, I feel like he's going to be in a nice position to hit a timing when it's down the road, as this Reaper and Hellion is diving in and the Stalker isn't able to stop it just yet. So Dolan, he sees everything.
Yeah, both the Hellion and Reaper make it into the mineral line. They should get around the edge of the base, and in the end, he scouts almost everything. He did miss the Twilight Council, but I mean, seeing all those gateways, you can assume.
Yes, you have to know that it is going to be some pressure here as PiLiPiLi warping in more Stalkers, and it looks like he's getting ready to move out, potentially at least get a little bit on the map, as that Observer is heading out now. And with only 2 barracks done for Dolan, his pressure is going to be delayed a little bit longer.
Yeah, that it will, and this could be a little bit scary, right? You know, Blink, I believe, yes, it is already done for PiLiPiLi. He's just warping in more Stalkers, just heading out across the map, looking to see what kind of damage he can get done. There is a tank ready and waiting in the natural of Dolan. His main base is a little bit exposed, but a second tank is on the way, I imagine, looking to cover that main.
Yeah, and the main is really the big weak spot at the minute, because that tank on the low ground is fairly close to where the bio is. However, there's nothing protecting all of these very expensive add-ons, and all of the bios heading back down to the natural. Very concerning.
Yeah, exactly, especially because PiLiPiLi does have eyes on this, but, you know, Dolan is aware. He does have that Raven. If PiLiPiLi isn't careful, he can lose that Observer.
Yes, and now Dolan has a tank on the high ground, and PiLiPiLi, he's completely okay with this, saying, you know what, I can't kill you right now. I will, however, take a 3rd Nexus and start up a Forge and Charge on the way. So PiLiPiLi beginning a transition as he starts to blink into the natural.
Oh my god, yeah, he actually does commit into that blink. He does get a decent amount of worker kills. Oh, he actually commits and gets the Raven.
Oh, that's really huge. That Raven did so much to shut down Observers, and so now Dolan will have to scan for them, and that is really what you not want to be doing, because you really want meals going down, as there is a good sizable amount of buyout coming out now, and with this 3 siege tank count, I feel like PiLiPiLi is going to struggle to find any more damage.
Yeah, this is dangerous because, again, without that Raven, then it is possible for PiLiPiLi to take advantage of the situation and try and pull his opponent apart and try and dive into the main base. But of course, behind this, we see there's a 3rd, and Dolan does scan and confirms it for himself.
Yes, Dolan, he does know absolutely everything, as he also gets that Observer on the other side of things. Really nice job to shut down a lot of the vision of PiLiPiLi. However, there's still 1 Observer over here in the natural, and if this doesn't get scouted, then PiLiPiLi will know exactly where Dolan's army is, and oh no.
Yeah, he sees it, so it's go time. He's like, okay, your army is pushing out of the natural. I'm going to dive into the main base, get a tank for free.
Oh, that's really not good, as SCs are pulled immediately to repair that combat shield, as this bio is still in the main base, and most of the Stalkers get recalled out, and one of them does get away in the Warp Prism, and so this is going to put on such a headache for Dolan, as he has to keep this Warp Prism out of his main base.
Yeah, this is scary, right? He wants to push out. He's been wanting to push out for a while now, but he just can't because of that Warp Prism. As it dives back in.
Yeah, and there is a Dark Shrine on the way. No warp-ins just yet defensively, just the 1 Stalker being a little cheeky, as Dolan, he is moving out, and PiLiPiLi opting to get every defensive unit that he can at the minute. He needs to not die here, as there are mortals on the way, more warp-ins. I feel like PiLiPiLi, he is in an okay spot, but oh, that's so many SCVs being pulled.
Oh yeah, Dolan's like all in at this point. He's just going for it right now. Meanwhile, we only have 1 shield battery here at the 3rd base. We have a couple of more at the natural, so it looks like PiLiPiLi, he is ready to just give up the 3rd if need be.
Yeah, that 1 shield battery is expended most of its energy. However, there looks like there is enough for a Nexus overcharge, and with +1 armor finishing and that Dark Shrine, Dolan's going to be in an interesting spot, and that 3rd base looks like it will be giving up, but PiLiPiLi may be going for it, losing quite a few zealots.
Yeah, he trades a little bit, but he does evacuate his 3rd. He completely gives it up, and again, he was completely prepared to do so, right? He has 3 shield batteries at the natural. He's ready here. Meanwhile, at the same time, he does warp in zealots across the map, just completely eviscerating the mineral line of Dolan, just solidifying the fact that he's all in.
Yes, and DTs are also out, and this army on the other side of things isn't on, as there is a fight on the other side, and I feel like Dolan's taking a rather good fight. PvP trading out not quite as effectively, but those siege tanks being in range of things, you have to engage.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, we got some DTs in here as well. What are the scans looking like for Dolan? If he doesn't have any, then his army is going to get cleaned up.
Yeah, that Dark Templar is doing so much. There's only one of them. However, second one does get warped in. A couple of Zealots being warped in as well as probes pulled. And I feel like PiLiPiLi, he's done it.
Yeah, he has. Meanwhile, the scan is too little too late. The main army of PiLiPiLi he's just cleaning up house right now as GG gets called.
PiLiPiLi, really nicely done to take that game. And what a game it was. That was really intense.
DTs are pretty good, you know.
DTs are good, you know. They definitely raised my blood pressure a little bit. As Dolan, he was forced really into a bad spot there, just like from the opening, and PiLiPiLi played it up perfectly.
Yeah, it did feel like PiLiPiLi was in the driver's seat the entire time. Everything was in his control. He saw the army push out. He made the decision to go in. He confirmed that that he was all in, essentially, as the entire time that the army was pushing out across the map, there was an observer following it as well. PiLiPiLi, he immediately was prepared to give up that third base, and Dolan was wasting time at the third as well, sieging up and throwing down all those bunkers. Really well played by PiLiPiLi.
Yeah, Dolan probably needs to change his game plan a little bit. Just like a couple of minor changes. I feel like if he cleans up his build a little bit better, has a cleaner defense, and doesn't lose so much to that stalker count just warping into the main base unopposed, I feel like Dolan could have a really nice game here, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that we will. I do feel like some of it also does come down to Dolan losing his Raven pretty early on as well. It's a bit of a shame because it had so much energy banked up and it just didn't have the opportunity to use any of its abilities. And that would help so much in terms of the defense against the War Prism. But enough of game number one. We are here in game number two, and spawning in the top left-hand corner of Death Aura ALE, we have the American Protoss player. He is blue, representing Genesis Gaming. It is PiLiPiLi.
And we have in the bottom right-hand corner the Red Terran, who's currently teamless. Let's give it up for Dolan.
Looking to get his name out there, maybe get picked up by one of the other American teams, like Exxon or like Genesis Gaming.
Yeah, both very good orgs. They're a little bit newer to the scene, not necessarily having been around for all of Legacy of the Void, but however, they are very strong and well-known orgs nowadays. As we do have a early probe scout coming out of PiLiPiLi, once again opting to try and find info where he can.
That he is. Looking to maybe delay that natural base, maybe force his opponent to pull a couple more boys. Oh, interesting. Dolan does fully wall off.
Yeah, and it takes PiLiPiLi a second to notice this, as the SCV RNGs nicely to be on the backside of the wall, and it will have to keep that supply depot alive for now. But with the Reaper on the way, I feel like PiLiPiLi is going to get basically no info here.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm really curious to see what Dolan has planned. I was about to say, like, he did take his both gases pretty early on. He did delay his natural base as a result. He is working on his factory. I'm curious. Are we going to see a faster starport? Are we going to see some Banshee play?
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely going to be pressure as Dolan. He has some very aggressive builds in his repertoire, and with this Reaper out and able to shoo away the probe from getting really any scouting info at all, I feel like one of his more aggressive one-base plays could be on the cards.
Exactly. PiLiPiLi has no idea if maybe there is a natural in the main base that's about to be floated down, and we do see the CC right there, or if it was on location. Like, PiLiPiLi is in the dark at the moment right now. Dolan with complete map control with this Reaper.
Yeah, and this Reaper is going to get in. See, hey, there's a Nexus. Hey, there's a Stalker. And really, he does miss the tech. However, getting out with his life is very important because he will be able to go in for that rescout, potentially find out that it is the Twilight Council that can.
That he will. And the other interesting thing is that it does look like Dolan wants to go for a Widowmine drop. Yeah, we do have a second Widowmine on the way. And what's important about that is that with a Widowmine drop, you know, it isn't just about the damage that you deal, but you can also get some scouting information. You can, you know, get a full scout of the main base, see what kind of tech is going on, and force your opponent to respond.
Yes, and this Reaper is doing a very nice job. It stays alive so far, avoiding the Stalkers. Looking to be maybe getting a scout off once again, as there are Stalkers nicely positioned to shoot this Reaper. And will it go down? Looks like it might.
Ooh. Yeah, it does go down. Doesn't manage to get into the main base. Meanwhile, PiLiPiLi is taking this very seriously, throwing down a shield battery in the natural.
Yeah, it's overly defensive since we have full info, but PiLiPiLi, he doesn't know that Dolan has the natural base. He doesn't know that Dolan might not, or isn't doing any like weird SCV pulls off of 5 barracks. Instead, it's just a fairly normal Widowmine drop, and the shield battery may be useful later if Dolan puts on pressure.
Yeah, exactly. PiLiPiLi, I believe, is also 100% walled off as well, question mark, I believe.
It looks like it.
Yeah, I don't think there is room there for a unit. So again, he's very terrified of a one base all in. Meanwhile, the Widowmine drop does get into the natural. No reaction.
Nothing pulled. Finally, things get pulled, but so many probes went down just there, and it looks like the Widowmines will be able to get out. Maybe. Oh, just barely.
Oh, just barely. He manages to escape. 12 probes did go down. Honestly, that was a beautiful Widowmine drop. A little bit scary. We'll see if he's able to achieve a little bit more, if he's able to go back in and drop them once again.
Yeah, but that will be a ways away, as meanwhile, while those Widowmines wait their turn, there are more racks being thrown down, and Dolan once again opting for a bit of a heavier 2-base pressure before throwing down any sort of 3rd base.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to a 3rd base, you know, PiLiPiLi is still stuck. Oh, meanwhile, the medevac does get sniped.
Oh, that's unfortunate, and none of the Widowmines were able to burrow there, so PiLiPiLi able to keep all his probes alive is really, really nice there. So you can just get as stay even at the very least with Dolan.
That he does. A blink is done, and finally the pylon does get picked off. So now PiLiPiLi has the opportunity, has the option to get out of his natural base with a probe and actually expand and take a 3rd. Meanwhile, now full map control has swung in favor of PiLiPiLi as he is pushing out on the map.
Yeah, PiLiPiLi only on 4 gateways, so this isn't the most dedicated pressure. However, this is still very, very serious as he does fan out and make sure, hey, there's no like weird movement out just yet. And with a couple of SCVs out in the natural getting spotted by these Stalkers, I feel like PiLiPiLi with that a little bit of advance warning is able to position his tanks nicely. And I feel like he's in a great spot to defend.
That he is, as Dolan losing a couple of SCVs a little bit needlessly. Dolan did pick off an observer earlier with his Raven. That Raven does have 1 kill, but there is a second observer coming out here for PiLiPiLi, so the option to just blink into the main base is still there.
That it is, as there's now Warp Prism as well, so a couple more Stalkers being warped in, and this Observer is very, very close with this Raven. It does get spotted out by the Raven, however, the Stalkers going into the natural base get the Siege Tank and the Bunker.
Oh my god, that he does. Again, the main army was distracted by that Observer. Oh my god, a lot of Stalkers are going down though.
Yeah, unfortunately, fighting against Bio is not quite what you want, as there's also a Siege Tank in the natural, and there are still only 3 Siege Tanks, but you really can't fight 3 Siege Tank and a bunch of Bio with pure Stalker.
Yeah, you can have a hard time there. Meanwhile, once again, the Raven gets sniped.
No, PiLiPiLi once again getting that Raven is absolutely massive. It's going to make any sort of pressure from Dolan that much weaker. And considering Dolan still doesn't have a 3rd base on the way, I would be very concerned.
Yeah, I'm getting some game 1 vibes right now. Like, we could be seeing the same thing. Meanwhile, the Stalkers do blink into the main base, focusing down the starport for a little bit, but he does get forced back.
Yeah, the Siege Tanks reposition up to the main base. There are 3 now defending all of these buildings, with only 1 in the natural. And the Bio, they should be enough, plus that 1 Siege Tank to shoot these Stalkers. We have to catch them. And with a blink, that's very difficult.
That it is, that it is. Meanwhile, of course, the threat of the War Prism is always there as well. We do have 4 Zealots in that War Prism. Charge is not done quite yet, but he does get into the mineral line.
Yeah, and the SCVs, they are pulled really quickly with a couple of Marauders opting to try and macro against this, and the Zealots are pulled. Once again, a couple of them are going down, and the Stalkers doing so much. Oh, they're going to get the tanks.
Oh my god, 1 tank, 2 tanks do get picked off, and that just, oh my god, that does so much to hinder this push of Dolan. This push would have been with 4, but now down to 2.
Yeah, there's 1 tank in the main base with the Marauder, but they were so busy fighting off Zealots, they're going to be so far behind this push, and there's still nothing to really chew this Warp Prism, as it could maybe warp in once again, instead opting to back it out and focus on warping in defensively, and there are disruptors, man. This push is very... I don't have that much confidence in this push here from Dolan.
It's monk ass, man. That's what this is. Like, oh my god. We have 2 disruptors. One of them does try to flank the army, does pick off a couple of Marauders, but we do, of course, have 1 more disruptor, another on the way. Oh god, and Dolan is going to make something happen here.
He does indeed. The Bio doing what it can. The tank slowly sieging forward with the super battery, keeping this Protoss army alive and well. And the Disruptor is doing so much zoning. I worry for Dolan. He really has to get something done, and I feel like this is not enough.
Yeah, he has to force the issue a little bit more. Meanwhile, the Zealots are getting on top of the army. One of the tanks does go down. The Disruptor shots honestly don't land whatsoever on the main Bioforce.
Nice splits by Dolan, able to dodge that last Disruptor shot, which was looking pretty close. And I feel like Dolan, without these siege tanks, is in a little bit of trouble. However, as long as he can avoid the Disruptor shots, maybe he can get something done. But Colossus on the way now too. Oh no.
Ah, god. He's maybe trying to sneak around and maybe get a jump on these Disruptors. He wants them. He steps forward.
Oh, able to get 2 of them, but not the 3rd. And so much bio goes down. PiLiPiLi taking game 2. What a final Disruptor shot.
Wow, Jesus Christ. I mean, there was some nice focus fire there. He did get 2, but he didn't get the 3rd, and that was it. That was it for Dolan in game 2.
Yeah, unfortunately not able to keep up he was just kind of, once again, I feel like driven by PiLiPiLi into doing not an optimal build or all in once you lost the Raven and 2 siege tanks and so much of your main base SCVs that like PiLiPiLi was just in the driver's seat and drove him his way to victory.
Exactly. Game 1 and game 2 were very similar to each other, it feels. So much so that I feel like Dolan needs to do something different here. He really needs to drastically change his approach to this matchup. This is potentially his final game. Despite that, I kind of want him to go for a proxy. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, proxies, they are always a good response, just because it's so easy to get thrown off in a proxy, and it puts the game in a weirder state, so you have to think about it a bit more. And I feel like PiLiPiLi while it is a very cerebral play, I feel like that might favor Dolan if you can just get PiLiPiLi off his game plan, off his 4 gates 2 base pressure.
It's possible. Oh boy, we'll see if he's going to be able to pull it off as we are loading into the game. It will be on Jagannatha. That will be the staging ground for game number 3, and we'll see if Dolan can fight back and put a point on the board. As we are loading in here, we go spawning in the top left-hand corner of Jagannatha LE. We have the American Protoss player. He is blue, representing Genesis Gaming, already up 2-0 in this best of 5. It is PiLiPiLi.
And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, he is teamless, and he is the Reddit Terran, needing to put a point on the board. Give it up for Dolan.
Hey, there's no SCVs out on the map.
Give him time. He can still proxy his factory and his Starport. I still have a little hope. But I'm losing it by the minute. As there is always a chance that Dolan decided to go with the like I just the like old hey, I can beat you with this build. I just gotta like get it just right. Um Looking like he's gonna go for that very fast wall off again, and I like this out of Dolan. Denying the scouting and keeping PiLiPiLi in dark is what you really need to do.
Yeah, so far Dolan, this is the exact same opener he went for in game number 2. You know, getting both of his gases, walling off completely, and PiLiPiLi, he did like semi overreact to the defense in game number 2. Maybe because of how it turned out, maybe he relaxes a little bit more, and maybe he under defends and under commits, and maybe gives an opportunity for Dolan to do something a little bit more aggressive.
On this SCV had really nice RNG, staying in the back behind the wall, basically the whole time building this depot, as the depot is basically going to finish, but at the very end the SCV ends up on the wrong side, but does fight the probe with that Reaper on the way. That probe might not be long for this world.
Oh yeah. So far the probe is alive, just keeping an eye on that SCV for now. The factory is on the way, but now that the Reaper is out, that is it for the scouting information for PiLiPiLi. Now he is in the dark.
Yes, and this SCFE, it was positioned to the natural nicely. There is always a chance he gets to CC next, and it looks like there it is, as this Reaper is going across the map to get some scouting info done, and this time there's no wall, so the Reaper's going to have a much easier time getting in to see things.
Well, that it will. He does spot the natural base, he does just kind of cruise into the main base, does spot the Stalker, and backs off in the end. So we'll see how this game differs to the previous, because again Dolan's going for the exact same thing. He's working on his Widow Mines. I imagine he's going to go for another drop. Last game he actually got some juicy Widow Mine connections. Can he do it 2 games in a row?
I hope so, because he needs something to go his way, as he still hasn't seen that it is a Twilight opener once again, although I feel like Dolan can kind of suspect, just assume that PiLiPiLi is going to do the Twilight opener. While there is a chance he goes for something like a Stargate or a Robo, that Twilight has done so successful, so why should PiLiPiLi change?
Yeah, I was kind of like thinking maybe he would go for a Dark Shrine. There is an idle probe there in the back of the mineral line. I was like, maybe, but nah, he's just kind of just being lazy. There you go, he does go back to work.
Yes, that probe is called back to work as it is a Robo to follow up this Blink once again. So opting to put on pressure in a little bit with that War Prism with those Blink Stalkers. And I feel like Dolan will once again be in a pretty good position to defend with that factory on the way already. Yeah,
that he is. Once again, we do have that one Widow Mine going across the map. Sorry, one Medevac going across the map with 3 Widow Mines within it. Oh boy, we'll see. We'll see if the Stalkers are going to be in position. Right now, there are 3 outs kind of spread out across the bases. And the Reaper is looking to maybe distract them, maybe pull their attention into the main.
And that they do, as the Stalkers are so far out of position, focusing on that Reaper. So there's nothing but, much faster pull this time as Dolan loses only 1 probe, this PiLiPiLi, and losing a mine is not what you wanted. What?
Oh my god, PiLiPiLi going back to mining a little bit too soon, and in the end 9 probes go down, even almost as much as last time.
That is absolutely huge. Getting 9 whole probes is it's basically caught him up in economy wise. And so Dolan, he's done what he needed to do in put on that early pressure. Now all he has to do is survive. He has the Raven. If he keeps it far enough back and keeps these siege tanks alive, I feel like he'll do an excellent job of defending this pressure.
I feel like you're thinking the same thing as me. You're like, as soon as you say he just needs to keep the Raven alive, oh god, it's not gonna happen. Oh god, Dolan, please, just babysit it. You need to keep the Raven alive.
Yeah, just I'd love to see it just stuck on his mineral line or something, just as far back as possible where you can't blink on it. But instead of keeping it with his bio, which is a reasonable decision. However, there's nothing in the main base. The tank isn't siege at all up there, and these Stalkers, they get in. You're gonna get the tech labs.
They do get 1 tech lab. That Raven once again does go forward. No, not again. Oh.
Okay, it lives this time on very low HP, but you really need to repair that. This Raven is such an investment from Dolan that he has to do something with it, and losing it to Stalkers every time is not the answer. The Medevac.
Yeah, the medevac was coming home and it was intercepted by those stalkers in the center of the map. But you know what? Like, so far so good, right? I think this is the longest that Dolan has kept his Raven alive.
Yeah, and if you can keep it alive for long enough, maybe he can let it lead him into a win. As we do have the siege tanks nicely sieged this time, and now switching into that Widow Mine production is Dolan, and I really like this. Opting to go for a bit more of bulkier army with Widow Mines to hopefully deal with the charge lots that are coming from PiLiPiLi.
Definitely. He's approaching this army composition a little bit differently. Meanwhile, does get a little bit exposed with that Raven, but still he's just keeping it alive, and really that is his lifeline here in this game. So much potential with this Raven that we just haven't seen, with anti-armor missile, with anti-interference matrices on the War Prism, on Colossus. Like, there's just so much potential in this Raven that we have yet to see, but we may see finally here in game 3.
Yes, hopefully, as speaking of Colossus, they are on the way for PiLiPiLi, already having the tech available, and starting to get a decent army at home with these stalkers, not really able to reinforce that well. I feel like PiLiPiLi, his pressure is done, and now he's just kind of waiting to defend what move out Dolan has, and move out time it is, by the looks of things.
That it is, and pretty interesting so far by PiLiPiLi, because this game he opted not to go for a War Prism like he did in the previous game, so the opportunity for him to kind of counterattack and keep Dolan busy at home just isn't there this game.
Yeah, and this time all the observers are cleaned off from Dolan's side of the map, and so now PiLiPiLi is a bit more in the dark, and that Raven still alive, has enough energy to disable Colossus. I am liking Dolan's position here.
Yeah, definitely. PiLiPiLi is doing what he can to kind of shave off a couple of Marines here and there, but again, we are on Jagannatha. Those speed zones do come into effect. Dolan's already across the map, blowing the siege up. Again, looking to interference matrix one of those Colossus.
Yes, and with that Raven having the energy too, I feel like he needs to, as a stalker, they try and get something done, but they are forced back. And while Dolan has a nice position, he's still reinforcing a little bit, waiting to things up. And oh, I love this. A drop into the main base might just be what Dolan needs to get PiLiPiLi out of position.
Yeah, exactly. Finally, it's Dolan who's going to be applying some pressure to his Protoss opponent, something that he just hasn't had the opportunity to do here, like some real multi-prong harassment as the drop is going into the main base.
Yes, it is coming to Mines Burrow, and no reaction at all. That is so many mines dead already, but more in the natural base. But this time they do get a nice probe pull, and they find something, but the army is pulled out of position, and the Colossi are there left basically alone.
Yeah, the Stalkers are not here to buffer. All the Zealots go down. Nice Matrix on one of the Colossus, and this is looking beautiful for Dolan. He's focusing down, and the Nexus does die. It does go down.
Really nice job by Dolan. This time has dealt so much economic damage this time around, and while the Colossi, they're now all available, and there's a Disruptor as well underneath this, he has energy for potentially another disable. Instead, the Raven does end up going down, but still, there's just so much tear in here.
Exactly. 2 Colossus do go down. Only a handful of Stalkers remaining. To be fair, this is getting pretty scrappy, and like there's barely any army for both players, but Dolan dealt the damage. He killed the third.
Yes, and keep in mind, behind these, Dolan is getting upgrades, and PiLiPiLi has decided to stop at +1, so PiLiPiLi, with a bit of an upgrade deficit, is going to need to rely on his higher tech units to keep him competitive, as there is a third base floating for Dolan, but no third base in sight for PiLiPiLi.
Yeah, exactly. Dolan, this is the best he's looked the entire series so far, and right now he just needs to maintain this third base. He can just kind of zoom ahead in terms of economy, remake his army, and now the pressure is on PiLiPiLi to try and make something happen to get back into this game. And without a War Prism, it's going to be so difficult to do so. Finally, we do have that War Prism. Does pop out.
Yeah, that War Prism took so long, and meanwhile, there's a third Nexus finally being taken, but PiLiPiLi, he's moving out, and that Nexus is more like, if I can deal enough damage, I will stay in, as there's so many Vikings in production with 2 starports, and at least 6 already done. I am worried for PiLiPiLi here.
Yeah, exactly. The tank is sieged up. We have a sensor tower as well. PiLiPiLi, he's committing to this, though.
Ooh, Disruptor shot, kill the tank, but also loses a couple of Zealots, and with the Vikings able to DPS down the Colossi, PiLiPiLi just types GG, and that's the game.
Wow, and with that, we have a series. Dolan does take the game, and he's not out of it yet. We are getting into game 4.
Yeah, game 4. I'm very excited to see if Dolan can once again keep that Raven alive. Yes, because the one game he managed to keep it alive until his push, he managed to win. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Exactly. Look, I'm just saying, you keep the Raven alive, 100% win rate. That's all we've seen so far.
Exactly. And so Dolan hoping to once again keep that Raven alive on Oxide, which I feel like is a somewhat Terran favored map in this map pool.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, there's a lot of potential here for Dolan, and he has some momentum going his way, right? He just won the previous game, you know, he's feeling good right now, getting into the next one, finally kind of getting into the groove of, or getting into the swing of things, maybe kind of just shaking off that rust in the first couple of games. So far, looking good.
Yes, so far so good. And Dolan, having looked so good, will have us something to prove here. But before I get into that, we should probably introduce these players.
That we shall. Spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Oxide LE. This man is still on match point. He is now up 2-1 in this best of 5 series. Just needs one more to close it out. Representing Genesis Gaming, it is PiLiPiLi.
And in the upper right-hand corner, the man with the plan of making a Raven. Give it up for the red Terran player of Dolan.
Oh boy. Now the question is, does he keep going for the same build? Will he wall off once again? Will he try and keep his tech hidden? Or does he feel confident enough to, you know, switch things up?
Yeah, we will have to see. I would like to see a small mix-up, like maybe proxy the starport or something. However, that does mean the Raven will be much later, if built at all. And so there is that trade-off. However, I'm curious if PiLiPiLi will stick with the Colossus first of the last game, or will he go back to the Disruptor first of game number 2?
Yeah, that's kind of the big question. I mean, the other interesting one was in the previous game he delayed his War Prism for a very long time, so he couldn't force Dolan into that all-in scenario that he was able to do so in the previous games, where there were kind of zealots or stalkers in the main base of Dolan dealing damage, killing SCVs, forcing him all in. So yeah, we'll see how this plays out from both sides, as once again Dolan, he walls off.
Yeah, opting for that wall off again, and also dealing a decent amount of damage to this SCV, which does end up on the backside of things, and now is once again going, hey, you're not proxying a pylon here, right? I don't have to worry just right away, and my Reaper can go across the map, and that he does. Reaper on the way across, and with once again nothing to block the Reaper gem spot, I feel like Dolan has a good shot of getting into scout this tech.
Oh yeah, definitely, as the Reaper does make his way across the map. Meanwhile, that probe this time was able to stay alive on the other side of the map for PiLiPiLi, so he will be able to go in for a secondary scout, get a better eye on things, get a better idea of what is happening. Meanwhile, the Reaper of Dolan just kind of chilling, chipping away at the pylon.
Yeah, you know, eventually he'll get that pylon down, or he'll be shoot away by the Stalker, one or the other, as that Stalker is finally here, and it does keep that Reaper out of the natural for now, so no pylon kills just yet, as that probe is denied the scout on Dolan's side of things, and the Reaper, having not seen this Twilight Council, is a bit concerning, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely would be, especially if PiLiPiLi was switching things up, maybe going into a Stargate opener, which we have yet to see from him. So far, both players have kind of stuck with a very similar opening for themselves throughout this series. It does seem to be their preferred way to play out this matchup.
Yes, once again, it's that mind up. Once again, it's that blink pressure with the Robo behind it. And so I really like this from the players. They're sticking to their guns. They're like, this is how I beat you. And they're just going to optimize builds as, the Reaper dives in and sees basically everything.
Oh, yeah, he does see the Robo, he sees the Twilight Council, he confirms that it is going to be the same opener, which I'm sure does put Dolan's mind at ease for now. Meanwhile, he's going for the expansion. This time, PiLiPiLi will have a beautiful timing of it, as he does keep his probe alive in the natural of Dolan. Or can he block
Yes.
it? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, no, the SCVs, they were transferred down. The probe had the opportunity to maybe place a pylon down, delay things by quite a bit, but there was a good Marine count, and there's a drop heading across the map. It's looking to get here, and will it get it? Oh, there's Stalkers in position. No.
Oh god, there are Stalkers in position. The probes do get pulled away, but even if they do get pulled away, we have seen that damage can still get done.
Yeah, and this time all the mines get not a whole lot, 3 units in total. Actually, no, only 2 probes, excuse me, as one mine did not end up going off, and I feel like that was just not nearly enough.
Yeah, the Widow Mine drop just hasn't been able to deal too much damage, but it is still alive, so of course there is still potential here for him to dive back into the mineral line and maybe deal some more damage, but it's going to be difficult to do so, especially since we do have Stalkers ready and waiting on both sides.
Yes. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Dolan is once again, he got his 1 Raven, he has his 2 barracks on the way, and he's starting to get those siege tanks positioned to defend against any blinking stalkers, as an observer is finally sort of scouting what Dolan is doing now.
And I think what's important is that the threat of this medevac as well, because it is alive, it does force PiLiPiLi to keep some Stalkers at home, right? Like you can't leave your bases undefended. So it does kind of give more room for Dolan to really breathe and kind of get into the swing of things without the danger of those Stalkers.
Yes, exactly. As those racks are now finally landing on those tech labs. And I wonder if he's gonna put Stim in the back or the front, as he really needs that Stim upgrade to finish. And the Stalkers are moving out, and they do have Blink, so they could potentially get some tech labs if Dolan is out of position.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, he already has 3 tanks, so it's going to be really difficult for PiLiPiLi to really find too much damage here. Regardless, he can attempt to contain his opponent. This time he does have his War Prism across the map. He's slowly chipping away at this bunker. Does get it.
Oh, yeah, but loses him an Observer in return, and tries to get the Raven, but is unable to that time around. And I feel like with the War Prism, this is still a lot of pressure. However, that Observer is providing so much nice vision.
Yeah, exactly. Like losing that Observer was absolutely huge, and he's really risking a lot just waddling up the ramp. Actually wants to dive on top of the tank.
Yeah, he dives in, gets a couple of Marauders, a couple of Marines, but not the Raven. And that Raven, it stayed alive so far. And these Stalkers, they're looking for more.
Oh, that they are, but they're not going to get it. They tried to get into that mineral line, but they were forced back by the Marines of Dolan, and now he was able to reposition his tank.
Yeah, and there's a 3rd tank out once again, so Dolan keeping his main base safe while this bio tank, and 1 tank that is, in the natural, keeps those SCVs mining, and the Stalkers are blinking to the main base, and bio is a little far out of position.
Oh yeah, exactly, and with that the tank is exposed. One of the tanks will go down, but the other tank was a little bit too far behind, so the Stalkers couldn't quite get on top of it, but the Raven does get picked off.
And Raven unfortunately going down, and the Warp Prism also getting out is really bad news for Dolan, as that Warp Prism just does so much to keep Dolan paranoid. Because if you move out, then there's a good chance that Warp Prism can get back into your main base and do critical game-ending damage, as forcing you all in. Dolan, he is looking to move out maybe, but the Warp Prism on the map, that's so scary.
Yeah, Dolan, he wants to move out, right? Like, he's got 3 tanks, he's got his bio, but in the end, he thinks better of it, which is completely understandable. As you said, due to that War Prism, due to those being Stalkers, he just can't risk leaving at the moment, so instead he opts to go for a drop. At the same time, the War Prism does dive all the way into the main mineral line.
Oh, I like it. He has some Zealots in there. Meanwhile, there's a Stalker force in the natural doing a decent amount of damage. However, there's a flanking force of bio, and these Stalkers, they look like they will go down. Quite a few of them do at the very least, as the War Prism still in the main base has the Zealots cleaned up, and with Stalkers getting somewhat caught, I feel like Dolan is defended nicely.
Yeah, exactly. Dolan, he cleaned up the majority of the Stalkers, he cleaned up the Zealots without the Zealots dealing too much damage. The War Prism is kind of stuck in the corner of the map, and Dolan, he's looking so good right now. Over time, that tank count is getting higher and higher. Eventually, he will be feeling confident enough to push out. And PiLiPiLi, God, he just hasn't been able to find anywhere near as much damage as he was in the previous games.
Yes, and that Viking from Dolan does show away the Warp Prism of PiLiPiLi, as both players are opting to go for third bases. However, PiLiPiLi is a much faster third base than Dolan, and so Dolan's still opting to put on a bit of pressure as the Stalkers are, get completely missed. Maybe we'll be able to deal massive amounts of damage.
Oh yeah, and Dolan is not turning around, so we're ending up in a pseudo base trade. A couple of tanks do get picked off, and Dolan, he just goes straight for the third.
Yeah, he's doing what he can. The SCVs, they do get pulled away, at least for now, but it looks like they will eventually go down to the Stalkers. They're going back to mining. Meanwhile, there's a fight on the other side of things with really nice force fields and the super battery. Oh, no.
Yeah, but you know what? There's not that much here to keep alive. Only a single immortal remaining. Where the hell is the AoE for PiLiPiLi? We do have a disruptor on the way, but it's not done yet.
Yeah, on the other side of things, SCVs have been pulled against the Stalkers, but more SCVs have been pulled across the map. Dolan is in full on base race, but oh no! Oh, barely able to get that disruptor.
Yeah, the disruptor goes down without a purification nova going off. Honestly, that was the way that PiLiPiLi was going to win this game, but the AoE was taken out. With that, his production is under threat. Everything is going to get cleaned up. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, I mean, he still has his third base that is still relatively safe, but there's just so much Terran.
There is, and Dolan is also moving in. He's got a Nexus on the way. He's got the Viking landing as well to help out and just maximize his ground damage, as Dolan just has such a scary army. I don't know how PiLiPiLi breaks this other than just out mining his opponent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he still does have mining going on, which is the most important thing. All the CCs across the map were taken out, but as you said, Dolan is reestablishing himself in the main base of PiLiPiLi, now the main base of Dolan, I guess, question mark. Oh my god.
Yes, and this Terran force here is moving into what was once PiLiPiLi's natural, as it is going to run into a small Protoss force, but I feel like this isn't quite big enough, and there's just so much Terran here.
Yeah,
get worried about fighting outside the shield batteries.
Exactly. I feel like PiLiPiLi has to rely on his force field to try and cut up the army as best he can. Oh god, but it's gonna be so difficult here to deal with the tanks.
Yes, they are sieged rather far forward. A gateway is being warped in finally, but I feel like PiLiPiLi, he really needs to, like, had done this a little bit ago. He lost so much tech early on. And these tanks are getting ever closer.
Yeah, that they are. Meanwhile, decent force fields. He does trade pretty efficiently. PiLiPiLi does, but you know what? That was it for the energy for the sentries. They need a little bit more time for more force fields, and it looks like Dolan doesn't want to give it to him. Meanwhile, PiLiPiLi is setting up a flank.
Yeah, that flank, the Stalkers, they blink into the tanks. They're not helping with the fight at all. And the shield batteries, they do so much, but not enough, as Dolan takes game number 4.
Wow, and with that, we are getting into our ace match.
Well, the first one of the night, I'm pretty sure. But what a game, what a series this has been.
Yeah. I mean, especially with how the series started, I did not expect this to go all the way to the ace match. Dolan has done a really good job at tightening up over the course of the series and really turning things around. It was looking dire for him when he was starting off down 0-2, but now he's brought it back. We're 2-2. We're getting into game number 5, and oh my, it is going to be on Romanticide.
Yes, I am very excited. Romanticide is such an interesting map, just because it is that very defensive map. And so I feel like this is going to be the game that, if Dolan is going to mix it up much, this is the game to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so large, there are so many opportunities for a proxy as well. So either player could mix things up and be that much more aggressive, or we could get into a longer game. We shall see. We shall find out, as spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Romanticide LE, we have the American Protoss player. He is blue, but he is now tied up 2-2 in this best of 5 series. Representing Genesis Gaming, it is PiLiPiLi.
And spawning in the top or left-hand corner of Romanticide. Give it up for the red Terran, who is currently teamless. He is Dolan.
Oh boy.
Dolan having won the last 2 games. I'm curious if that momentum is going to affect PiLiPiLi's mood, because I'm not sure PiLiPiLi is like that emotional of a player. He used to be, but I'm curious if he still is.
Yeah, I'm curious as well. I don't tune into his stream as much as I would like. Of course, we are in different time zones, so it can be a little bit difficult to tune into them. But yeah, I know he did used to be in the past, and maybe that's affecting him a little bit. It's possible.
Yes, as once again things are basically the same as you have that wall off from Dolan. PiLiPiLi going for that basically same scout, and Nexus on the way. The SCV swaps over, and with the Reaper on the way, things are looking very similar to all the previous games.
Oh yeah, pretty much. As you said before, I liked how you put it. It's basically both players refining their openers as best they can, adapting to each other with these small adjustments as best they can. But we'll see if anyone goes for something drastically different.
Yes, there is always time to deviate, as that probe looks like it will escape from the Reaper, at least for now. The Reaper opting to try and chase that direction and hopefully get it. It looks like it will. That is really nice for Dolan.
Yeah, exactly. Now, once again, PiLiPiLi is in the dark, doesn't have any scouting information whatsoever. So if Dolan did attempt to deviate in some way, then PiLiPiLi would have no idea.
Yes, but instead, Dolan opting to go for basically the same thing. I'm very curious if he's going to get that Widow Mine drop going once again. And on the other side of things, PiLiPiLi, he blinks first. It's a Stargate.
Mike, he's crazy. He's a madman. He's not going for Blink Stalkers.
The absolute lunatic, as this Reaper is shoot away, but not before getting a probe kill. Really nice job by Dolan to get in, get out, but he still hasn't seen that Stargate, and so he has to maybe sack it eventually from a different angle.
Like, I love this, especially in the ace match, right? Like, after playing 4 games against each other where both players have pretty much done the exact same thing, now in the ace match, the match that matters the most, where everything is on the line, this is the match where you decide to switch things up and go into a Stargate, and it looks like Dolan, he's gonna get in. Oh.
He gets in, he sees it. The Adept also not quite able to kill him on the way out. However, that Stalker looks like he just might, as that Phoenix first from PiLiPiLi is scouted out by the Reaper. However, like, I feel like regardless of that, he's still in a really nice spot.
Yeah, definitely, and I love this. I was a little bit concerned that Dolan was kind of like on a one-track mind and he would still go for the exact same thing, which would be difficult to pull off. Like, Widow Mine drops can be intercepted and shut down by these Phoenixes pretty easily, but we do see, sure, one Widow Mine was made, but immediately he did switch into Viking and Cyclone production.
Yes, and that Viking and Cyclone production will do so much. And that Widow Mine out on the map, able to get a Phoenix, is absolutely massive. Taking damage to the Phoenix count really early on makes this so much more difficult for Protoss players.
Definitely. Boy, a big loss there by PiLiPiLi. Meanwhile, he does confirm that there is a Viking. Viking does confirm the Cyclone as well. Looks like he will be able to pick off a Widow Mine.
Yes, and that's a nice start getting a Widow Mine here, but PiLiPiLi really needs more than that. You can't just get like one Widow Mine for all these Phoenixes. You really have to try and get more, at least if not now, then in the fights, by nice control and lifting up all the potential siege tanks.
That's the thing, like, whether it's with Blink Stalkers or with these Phoenixes, like, there's a lot of potential for damage. It's very positioning based though, again, where PiLiPiLi, he can catch like a medevac here and there, or a straight tank here and there, if he's able to kind of catch his opponent off guard a little bit, maybe even dive into a mineral line. But for now, PiLiPiLi, he opts to just keep them at home.
Yes, that he does, as we do have a robotics bay on the way, as well as that observer finishing up for Dolan, or PiLiPiLi, excuse me. And with the Adept going across the map and scouting the Bioforce, I feel like PiLiPiLi has a good amount of info here, while Dolan is a bit in the dark of this tech switch.
Yeah, exactly, and that can be a little bit dangerous, right? Like that's the benefits of these phoenixes. It means that these drops are so much more difficult to pull off, and as a result, you don't really know what your opponent's doing. I was kind of expecting straight into disruptor play, but here we go. Instead, we do see Colossus and extended thermal lance.
Yes, I really I find this a very interesting play from PiLiPiLi because disruptors, they won't get shot down by any potential Vikings you have, but I also feel like that the Phoenixes will do so much to buffer for the Colossus that maybe he finds it worth it just because the more consistent damage as opposed to the very hit or miss disruptors.
Yeah, again, a very interesting decision, especially because he already saw that there were a couple of Vikings out due to the Phoenixes. But as you said, like the Phoenixes can also buffer for the Colossus, and once the Vikings do go down, then the Phoenixes can, you know, come in and CC some of the key units. And the thing is, Dolan still is unaware of the Colossus, so he doesn't know that he has to work on his Viking production.
Yes, instead opting to make just more medevacs to heal this bio, which the medevacs are nice, you need them, but you really also do need the Colossus and a second starport. And instead, there are more racks going down, and this looks like Dolan's going to base all in.
Yeah, exactly, especially with no third base on the way. We do see Stim and Combat Shields and +1 all lined up beautifully. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of boys being pulled as well just to send it across the map. It's on PiLiPiLi to try and spot this as soon as possible, and he does see the army moving out with his observer.
Yes, that observer is beautifully positioned, but the Raven will pick it off. And now PiLiPiLi doesn't know if the SCVs are being pulled behind this or if this is just a regular 2-base all-in. So he's not entirely sure how committed this is, but with the Phoenixes streaming across the map, he will soon know.
That he will. He does spot the army. He does see that there are no SCVs with it, so now he's aware. We should see a couple more shield batteries being thrown down at the third base. We do see one on the way. Overcharge is always available, but again, this army is quite terrifying. Plenty of energy on that Raven.
Yes, hopefully Dolan will be able to disable the Colossus if he is to win this game, as these Phoenixes are looking to keep everything alive. However, the tanks are sieging up. The Raven able to disable 2 of the Colossus, but not the third. However, there's just still so much Terran here, and this buys so much time and positioning.
Yeah, exactly. But as you said, that time has run out. The Matrixes have run out, and also a Disruptor is coming into the fray as well. Dolan, does he have enough to contend with 3 Colossus?
I'm not entirely sure. The Phoenixes, they look like they're going to win the air war against the Vikings, and the Colossus and the Zealots absolutely massacre most everything on the ground. 3 siege tanks gets lifted up. Another Phoenix comes out to help deal with these tanks. They are finally dropped, but not before basically everything on the ground dies.
Yeah, exactly. And in the end, 1 Colossus does go down, but it took so long for that to happen. Meanwhile, it took both players sustained a lot of losses, but PiLiPiLi was able to push away the Terran.
Yes, and the Phoenixes, they clear out all the medevacs, and this Protoss army is still chasing. I feel like PiLiPiLi has Dolan on the run, and Dolan gonna have a very tough time defending himself.
Yeah, exactly. GG gets called, and despite such a well-fought series by the Terran, PiLiPiLi does come out on top.
Yes, really nicely done by PiLiPiLi. He did not get completely reverse swept, only losing 2 in a row, but it was still very nerve-wracking for the PiLiPiLi fans out there because being ahead 2 games right away and then just like losing 2 in a row has to be rough.
Well, honestly, like, just good show by Dolan, right? To be able to make that happen, to be able to pull himself out of it after being down 0-2. You'd think like you'd be feeling devastating in that situation, but no, he was able to stand strong, bring it back, take it to the ace match. Honestly, like in that final push, especially because of how scrappy and how close it was towards the end, like there were barely any gateway units remaining for PiLiPiLi as his Colossus was starting to get focused down. I kind of wish Dolan did pull his boys and was a little bit more committed.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with you there. Like the reinforcements were a little nice, but like just drop some mules, man, and like pull the boys. The buffer, like even though they're a Colossi, the buffer they'll provide you against the Zealots, even will just do so much that maybe they would be enough to turn the tide of the fight, and winning 1 fight really early on would probably let Dolan maybe just run away with the game. That's a bit unfortunate there.
Yeah, and there's also the opportunity, we've seen Terran players do this before, where, like, okay, you Matrix the Colossus, you force the army back, and then you take that opportunity, you take that small window to, like, I don't know, even throw down, like, some bunkers or some missile turrets to help support your tanks. Like, even if it's just for SimCity against the Zealots, like, so much could be done there, but in the end, PiLiPiLi takes it.
Yeah, really nicely done, and he moves on to our semifinal, and we'll meet either Akko or Vindicta in the All-American semifinal in the lower half.